Hi, this is Eric Naylor from Minnesota Kung Fu and Excelling Kung Fu. So, a lot of people study martial arts for different reasons. Maybe health, competition, learn discipline, culture, and this is okay. Everyone doesn't have to do it for self-defense. And you see this not just in traditional arts, you'll see it in the sport arts, you'll see cardio kickboxing, boxing aerobics. The problem can be if you're doing one of these classes that are more designed for health and you think that you're doing self-defense and you think you can fight. So in this video I'm not going to get into the actual training methodologies, but I'm going to talk about how to tell the difference between when you're watching a video someone who actually has experience in combative art versus someone who doesn't. And I'm going to start off telling a story from my own past. This guy years ago called me up. This will illustrate one of the main points I'm going to try and make. And he said he did some bagua and Kung Fu and he wanted to get together and work out. So I agreed to get together with him, invited him over to my house. Later on I found out from another instructor this guy actually made a habit of going out and picking fights with different instructors and was kind of a bully and jerk. I didn't know that at the time, otherwise I wouldn't have been as gentle with him, to be honest. But so soon after he got there, he wanted to spar with me. And keep in mind, at that time period I didn't really like to spar with people I didn't know, because we sparred with no mouth guards, no cups, no gloves, no protective gear at all, and we did full speed, nothing off target. You just counted on trusting your partner and being honorable. So if you're going to kick at someone's groin, you tap their inner thigh or pull it short. If you hit someone in the ribs, you can hit hard enough to leave a bruise, and that's fine, but you don't try and crack their ribs or something. So anyways, that's the way we're kind of sparring. So right away, when we start sparring, he starts doing all these hand motions and fancy looking stuff that immediately make people think, oh, he's a Kung Fu guy. And he starts circling me. For myself, I just kind of raise my hands and I wait, and when he gets within my reach, I immediately time his shot and hit him with like a quick jab type action. He backs up, again starts doing all this hand motions. This happens like 3 times. Each time I just hit him with a jab, and by the 3rd time he basically decided he didn't want to spar with me anymore. The point I'm trying to make with this, if this would have been videotaped and posted online nowadays, it would have been probably labeled as a humiliation or another failure of traditional martial arts. The fact is, I'm traditional martial arts. But because he was doing something that's recognizable as Kung Fu or bagua, people would probably have labeled him as a bagua master or Kung Fu master. And since I was just kind of standing there and then throwing out a jab, people would probably have marked me more as a boxer, kickboxer, or street fighter or something like that, instead of my background, which was also Kung Fu and Slot and a bunch of other stuff. So you have to be careful when looking at it. Most of the people, if you see them doing something with shadow boxing or with where it's clearly easily to see what style they're doing, I would say these people are not experienced martial artists, and they're at least not in combative arts. Because you go all the way back to the art of war from about 2,300 years ago, where it described winning battles. It said you should know yourself and you should know your opponent. You see this in modern times with fighters, athletes watching video on their opponents ahead of time so they can get their tendencies and learn what they are going to face. So if you're in a street fight, last thing you want to do is go out there and start doing a bunch of shadow boxing ahead of time, showing your opponent what your style is, what your level is, what your speed is, how you generate power, your timing. You're giving them a whole slew of information they can use against you. You don't want to be doing that. And if you're an experienced fighter, you won't be. So most people who are doing that, who are labeled as these Kung Fu masters or karate masters on these videos, actually are either people who have no clue how to fight, or they're so arrogant or so nervous that they know they shouldn't be doing that, but they do it anyways. Either way, you can pretty much predict that that's not a good representation of the art, and that person's probably going to get their butt kicked. And that has nothing to do with the art, it has to do with them not being understanding fighting. How can you tell someone who actually fights them, or understands it from like a traditional art? Again, if you go back to art of war, which a lot of arts kind of based their philosophies on some things from that, it recommended to win battles without fighting. It was the highest ideal. So if you see someone who tries to walk away from a fight or does, that's probably experienced martial arts in many times. If you can't do that, the next ideal was to beat your opponent through subduing them and not destroying them. Now, that might mean if you're a grappler, you actually do restrain them. You know, I worked in a group home for 8.5 years where I restrained people all the time, and it didn't look like kung fu. Basically, they'd come in and try and hit me or something. I'd slip it, grab them, pin their arms down, push the back of their knee to lower them to the ground, and I told them there until they calmed down. Again, doesn't look like kung fu, but my training in martial arts gave me the reactions, the calmness, the speed, and the ability to have the attributes that allowed me to avoid their strikes and take them down, control them. So now, if you're a striker, you might not subdue someone you might not have the skill to subdue them through grappling. So you're subduing them might be hitting them once or twice and dropping them to the ground instead of hitting them 10 times. So again, that might be another way to tell an experienced fighter. So a lot of times, and the people will see a fight video and someone will hit the person and knock them out in a single strike. And they'll assume that this person's a boxer or kickboxer or a street fighter got lucky. They very easily could be any of those, but they could be a traditional martial arts too, because most traditional arts have some sort of punching or striking with the hands. Another thing that's listed in the art of war is you try to finish a fight quickly. And my Pinjak Slot teacher, one of them, said the same thing. He said you should finish a fight in under 3 seconds. So you're not, again, doing all this fancy stuff. You're trying to do something simple and finish the fight and be out there. That's what traditional martial arts recommends, and that's what effective fighting is. So when I'm teaching my students, you don't take this type of guard that's showing your style. Again, you're giving them information. You're also escalating the situation. And again, we want to try and avoid a fight in traditional martial arts. So, common thing for myself and most of the teachers I know from traditional arts is you just put your hands up in a more defensive, non-aggressive position. So if you see someone in a fight video that's kind of doing this, maybe they don't know what they're doing at all. If the first punch comes and they just cover up, they probably don't know how to fight. But if that first punch comes and they kind of sidestep it and punch the person, that could be a boxer, it could be a kung fu guy, it could be a lot of those things, because that's why I would teach my students to do things like that in an actual fight. Now you might say, well, what about all the complex actions that you often see people do? Well, again, in movies you see people always ahead of time show their style, but that's to create character. In fighting, you want to do it as simple as you can. The complex actions you see in shadow boxing often represent multiple opponents, or they represent when things go wrong. If things go right and I throw a punch, then I've hit you. I don't need to do something more other than maybe follow up with a second strike. When the complex action comes is if I throw this punch and you block it, I maybe need to fold or roll, or I need to clear your hand, or if you throw a strike back at me, I maybe need to defend that. So complex actions happen when things go wrong usually. If I hit you and that drops you, then I don't need to do anything more than that. And keep in mind, when you see different techniques, if you see someone doing like an elbow or a knee or something like that, a lot of people assume that's Muay Thai or something like that. But again, those are in traditional martial arts. If you see someone doing various throws, if you see them, again, doing punches, people assume the throws is maybe judo or jiu-jitsu. The punches are kickboxing or boxing. All those techniques are from traditional martial arts also. So it could be one of the sport arts, it could be one of those modern arts, but it could be a traditional one too. Because almost all of the sport or modern arts originated in traditional arts. So all those techniques of throws, joint locks, strikes, knee strikes, elbow strikes, punches, they date back thousands of years, and they're still in the combative arts. So don't assume just because you see someone throw one punch and knock someone out, or throw someone on the ground, or just go in and grab them and restrain them, that that's not the traditional martial arts. Oftentimes that will be. On the other hand, if you see someone doing some fancy thing that looks like it's from a movie, you can assume that that's not a good representation of a traditional martial arts, and that that's probably someone who is pretty much clueless about actual fighting. So, this video I made is kind of about frustration of seeing all the people who are clueless, who are doing the fancy stuff, being described as masters, and all the people who are doing simple stuff just being described as a boxer, MMA, or something, which they could be, but they could be a traditional artist too, because we do the exact same things. Anyways, thanks for watching.